So it turns out I was wrong about ChatGPT's new image generation 2. So I was using it to do very specific things, which we did see the results, and we saw how it didn't really get the detail of the music console. It didn't really give us the lighting detail that we wanted. However, I didn't show you guys the good side of this AI generation. So let's switch over here. I learned a little bit from Twitter. So the first thing we're going to show is this example of a girl, because the way we explain AI advancement is through visuals so that people can understand. Okay, so for example, this face looks pretty real. She almost looks like Huda from Love Island for people who know. Okay, but you can kind of tell the face is kind of cartoonish in a way. I don't know how to explain it. Okay, but then you go to person 2, and this person just looks very real. Like the dimensions on the kitchen here with the oven on the wall, the face structure. I don't know if I can zoom in. And this is Twitter, so it's downgrading the quality just a little bit. But even just from this basic back and forth, we could tell this one looks more cartoonish and very like avatar-y, and this one looks very realistic. Okay, so it's something about, I guess, the eyebrow structure. I don't know exactly what the differences are if I had to pinpoint stuff, but it's definitely in the mid section of the face here. Okay, and the detail in the hair, I guess, as well. So again, we look at pictures because it's not just AI slop. This is helping us understand how far AI actually jumps from one thing to the next. So here's another example where they're using ChatGPT to create campaigns for your email, for your website. It could do entire banners without even remotely going into Canva. Okay, now I'm curious if it does it with very specific dimensions. It looks like it here because everything's vertical, and it looks like they're doing email. So this entire email, they just copied and pasted this thing. I don't know how they gave it functionality in terms of clickable buttons, but in terms of the layout of the email, you scroll your email, it looks like a mini web page. So they figured out how to do this and embed it into the HTML in some type of way. And this is just like, you would think this is like a magazine's worth of quality here, y'all. So I just want to show you guys, I was clearly doing something wrong, even though I wasn't doing it wrong necessarily, because we should be able to speak in very basic English. But see, some of these people's prompts are JSON. So it's structured almost like a dictionary for those who code. Okay, you have a key and you have a value. Okay, and that is how people are prompting these machines to get more accurate results. But again, the average person is not going to be doing all this. So that is just a little overkill. But the results speak for themselves, however. So here's before. Let's read this one. This one says GBT Image 2 versus Nano Banana Pro. So I don't know which is which, so that kind of defeats the purpose of this. So let's see here. The green, I'm looking at the leaf lighting right here, the ring, everything in the background versus this. So I can't tell which one is which. So I guess the Nano Banana Pro's on the right. So this one does look a little more stale. When I first saw this, I actually thought this one looked more realistic, but now that I'm re-looking at it up close, this one has a little more dimensionality to it, like little details in the background that most AI generators overlook. This one actually focuses on those background details, like the arch back here. It looks like a window. I can't tell what this is. The lighting back on that wall. Whereas this one does give background details, but what most AI generators do is they just slap a bokeh effect on everything and just blur it out, so they don't have to generate the details. So this one does look a little more, I'll just say unsaturated. But again, at first I thought this one was better, because if you look at the texture on the leather, there's a little more detail. But now that I'm looking at it, this leather looks, I don't know, this one's a little difficult, to be honest. So they both kind of compete, at least. Now what we're going to do is retest some of these classic like low poly images and see if they can replace me with this character here. We're going to see if we can add ourselves to this picture here. These are just random tweets. I just thought those were aesthetic pictures. Now this person did a different brands written on the back of the dirty car, and they write the brands with the finger. So that's all. This is all great promotional stuff, great marketing stuff. What I came to realize is that marketing is really image based. Video is for content, yes, but when people go to your website, when you slap a bunch of video on your website, it clogs down the actual, basically the ability for the website to load. And so some of the best marketing in the world is not video, it's actually images. So I actually understand this in a different way. So somebody else took this classic image and they upscaled it using ChatGPT. We'll have to try that. And this one, now here's the sinister side. Somebody generated a fake check using this service, apparently, according to this person. I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently they generated a fake check. Now imagine, producers and artists getting people thinking that people are getting these huge checks from royalties and all this, but it's all made up. I just want you guys to stay up on the game, to not get fooled by these marketers out here who are lying to you guys about a lot of stuff in the music industry. So just stay up on this. I'm not saying to do this. I'm saying just be aware of people who could do this. You don't want to be fooled. Now this person redesigned his entire kitchen to resemble his childhood in the 90s. Okay. I just thought that was pretty dope of a use. You could, imagine your studio with different gear in it. Now this person is reporting that some generations create these artifacts. So we're going to have to test to see if we get this kind of artifact stuff going on here. But that's a bug currently. And I think this person here is creating different logos and different assets for their brand. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what all these are, but maybe they just recolored these. I'm not sure. So we're going to have to test this as well, because it looks like they're giving different brand identities. One is like punk. The other one is like childish looking. So we're going to have to see what we can do with that. And lastly, this one is just a straight up logo. So let's test all these one by one. So the first one is, let's just try to recreate what this person did. So most people, when they generate, they give you the prompt so that you can see it for yourself. So let's just copy and paste and see if we get something similar with that one. Now that one I'm not really dead set on. I just thought it was pretty dope, of like the detail of a PlayStation 5 coming through the ceiling with all these like micro artifacts. Even it understands even the light flash off the walls. So I thought that was just pretty detailed. So this will explain the detail of ChatGPT. We saw before how I couldn't figure out how to upscale inside of ChatGPT. So maybe we have to just tell it to upscale, because that's what the person did, was they upscaled their horror character. I forgot his name. I want to say Michael Myers, but I'm probably wrong. Or Jason, one of them. Okay, so here is our generation of a PlayStation. Funny, they have an Eagles poster because I'm from Philadelphia. So PlayStation 5 bursting through the ceiling. Wow, that looks very realistic. There's nothing that, let me move my screen. There's nothing in this picture that would be a tell that says this is fake outside of this poster right here. It has like garbly text on it. And whatever this is over here, I can't even make out this. If you look really closely, some of this stuff looks like low poly stuff. So like right here, this looks kind of weird and gloppy and gloopy. But if you didn't zoom in, you wouldn't know any better, okay? Because of how the lighting is. So this is going to be really dope for, like I said, marketing, hook capturing, bringing people in on that first 3 to 5 seconds of whatever you guys are doing. All right, so we know at least that prompt translates. Now this one, we're not going to prompt it. I wonder what they did. It says 1.5. So I guess they're comparing the GPTs there. Now this one I'm interested in. It says testing GPT. Now here's the prompt: create a polished email sequence template for, okay, so we're going to take this prompt and we're going to just reframe the words. So let's start a new chat. All right, we're going to click create image, copy and paste, and we're going to replace this. So create a polished email sequence template for, and then I'll say Busy Works Beats. Hopefully they even know who I am. So let's hit enter and see how that works out. Maybe they don't know who Busy Works Beats is. Maybe they do. We will see. All right, so the next one, again, is comparing 2 different models, one from Google, one from OpenAI. So that's kind of, we're not going to go back and forth. Now this one I'm interested in. So we're going to copy this and see if they will replace me on the motorcycle. So for people who are trying to create like really unique creative art, I found that editing existing things is better than trying to text prompt it, because trying to text prompt it, you have to get so specific about the style, and it just requires too many keywords, I found, to get very stylistic with this stuff. Now this stuff is better with, what is this? Okay, so it did not do what we asked it to do. So let's redo it. Maybe I forgot to click a button there. All right, so I think that time I forgot to click the image button. But again, with styles, I found that when you guys copy a reference image, it can understand it more than trying to describe some abstract style, unless it's a very known style like Halo 3 or Call of Duty or, Grand Theft Auto, something like that, Grand Theft Auto 5. That's another way people are testing out. Again, a lot of people call it AI slop, but what people are really doing is trying to see the levels of depth this AI model actually has. Okay, so for example, if I gave it, turn Busy Works Beats into a GTA 6 character, what would it look like? That will help people understand how specific these AI models go and how well trained they are. All right, so let me see here. So we're waiting on this. Okay, here it is. So this is not what the girl got on her results. So this just gave me a blueprint of steps. It didn't actually create the emails. So in this case, I'll say that one's a miss, at least using that prompt. But this is very good at infographics. So if you guys want little quick infographics, you give ChatGPT some information like, like mixture kick here, open this plugin, maybe even feed it the plugin pictures. It does really good at plugins. I've noticed it added FabFilter Pro Q4 or 3 to my image when I didn't even add it as a reference. So it really does good at certain things. Keyboards and consoles, however, not the best. But in terms of plugins, it tends to know what plugins are. So this is just giving me an infographic on the steps, I would take to get email success, which is actually pretty helpful because I can share that to the Discord very quick without wasting 1,000 hours. Because the key is not, people who don't run businesses don't really understand this. If I'm trying to share information like just mixer kick here, add 60 hertz, at 500 hertz, that's where the knock is. That's very basic information, but some people need visuals to make it like pay attention to it. And so if I could use the AI to just simplify it as a visual, the information is the key. It's not really the visuals making it a key. It just helps translate and communicate. All right, so now we're going to have to go into our files and find a picture of myself. All right, so you guys are going to have to take the time to find a good picture of yourself and remove the background. And then I'll say replace the low poly GTA character with me. Okay, so hopefully it understands what me means. My frustration with a lot of these AI generators is it doesn't know the picture from the next picture. So if you have like 3 people, it doesn't know who me is. And so there's a website called Reeve. They figured it out using the mention system where you use the @ symbol and it associates it to a picture. So the image number 1 you upload is called @image1. So when you type in the prompt @image number 1, replace @subject2 with @me, and then it knows. Okay, so it definitely did it, but it made me not match the style. So it doesn't comprehend style. So let's say make it low poly. Make it low poly, not this HD. So I'm being very basic with the language. I wasn't really specific. So I guess it technically did fulfill the request, but it didn't keep the style match. So it didn't really read the room on that one. But it did do the job. So that's interesting. Okay, so that could be cool for like an album art or, your song single art, for example. Let's see what else we got to do on this one. So this one, I want to copy this image. This is just a cool image, and I want to see if it will insert me into somebody else's image. So this is going to be, again, very tricky for people being fooled by a lot of marketers online. So now it made me low poly. It kind of made me almost Nintendo DS and not PlayStation-esque, but it did the job in a way. I won't say it's the exact style, but it did the job. Okay, so that's the low poly version. So it knows how to convert styles. All right, let's create a new one. And let's see here. Let's see if it will add me to this specific picture. So here I'll be a little bit vague. Add me to this photo. Thumbs up at the camera, smiling big. All right, let's see what it does there. And then we're going to try this for branding purposes. This could just be a little engagement thing you guys could post. That'd be dope. Here we got to test out their 2K upscale, and then we got to see, I guess we could do like studio remodeling. This one I haven't seen the artifacts, so we can get off that tab. And then we got to test the logo generation. That's going to be the last step here. So currently we're just testing, can it insert ourselves into other pictures? So how can I see producers using this against our will? They could be taking a studio session that just looks like a normal studio session and say insert myself at the console or on a chair, and it will make it look like you are in a session. So you got to be very vigilant with what people are putting online now. So here it has me. Now the lighting is a little weird. I look very highlighted compared to the lighting of the laptop. So I don't think it has understood 100% lighting. I think it doesn't really understand lighting I can't say very well. It understands lighting, but this doesn't make sense how the laptop is darker than the actual subject behind it. So for that reason, the lighting is kind of sketchy. But for the average person, it looks like me, so they wouldn't really even ask that question. Okay, so that works. Okay, and then let's see this one. Let's do the Godfather one, and let's say replace the text. So again, I'm just showing you guys different styles. Now again, when you go from text to image using very specific things like purple bape hoodie and all the stuff we did yesterday, it doesn't really get those details right, especially the music studio stuff, like the console, for example. it adds a bunch of buttons and lights on the console that normally aren't there. So replace the text with BusyWorks Beats and his logo, which I don't really have a logo. It's my face. So that'll be interesting to see what they think my logo is. And then we're going to try the 2K upscale with this. Let me find a picture of a studio. All right, so here put BusyWorks Beats. It didn't know what logo I was referring to because I didn't give it a logo. So it just kept the same Godfather logo, but it does look pretty dope. BusyWorks Beats. So again, where do I see this being used in the music industry is for artwork for you guys' songs and album art, for example, or your stuff on your website. Just little temporary, little creative ideas, nothing super in depth. Now we got to see if this does look pretty high def, but let's see if we can upscale this image to 4K. Another thing I want to test is in ChatGPT, because it's known for all the image generators that if you continue a chat and you ask it to edit, it will get confused in the context. So here I said to upscale it, and all it really did was add a contrast. So if you look closely, you know, it has like a tan beige color to it. And if you look here, it looks almost like navy blue, and it just didn't really get that much better. It just added a little more contrast because it changed the color of the car. Okay, so it made it feel upscaled, but really it's not upscaled. It's just more contrast on the image. So, I mean, for this image, it didn't really do that well, in my opinion. Now, it does look more detailed, however, but it's like an elusive trick to the eye. Now, a better thing to look at is actually the car mirror. So let's look at the car mirror on this one and zoom in on this one. This one's blurry, and then this one is more clear. So for that reason, I will say it did definitely. And you could scroll with your mouse wheel to see the difference there. So in that case, it did a decent job. Now, when you upscale too much, you'll see these little shapes, these little, like, I don't know the technical term for it. I'll just call it a polygon. It adds these like polygons to your image. So right here, it's just simple dust. And then when you upscale, it adds these like shapes. So that's typical for upscalers. If you upscale an image too much over and over and over, when you regenerate the same image over and over and over, it tends to add these polygon type shapes. Now let's add a studio and say, 90s max this studio to look like it's from the 90s. Okay, so I have a very modern studio, and what I'm testing here is two things. One, can it convert the space to look realistically like a 90s studio? And this studio is called Splice Studio, and we're going to convert this to see if it can do the 90s vibe, because it's a very modern looking studio, very neutral colors, you know, tan and, you know, industrial looking. And then we're going to see if it can go back to the 90s. I want to see if it also knows equipment from the 90s, like speakers from the 90s. I doubt it. Google tends to have a better product awareness, but let's just see what it does. If it's going to turn it into more of a warm orange tone, for example, for the 90s, and add more just coloration and variation. So that would be that test there. So that's mimicking this tweet here where he turned his kitchen into a 90s style kitchen. Okay, so the goal here is just to quickly iterate through ideas for you guys' studio. I can see that being a use case where you can ideate very fast. What would your studio look like if you had a couch over here or whatever? So that's something that I've even done for my commercial studio. I would use planners to kind of make sure everything could fit into the studio. So here's a 90s Max studio. That actually looks pretty dope. With the tape machine over here, old school TV, you know, that kind of 90s, I don't even know what this pattern's called, but that 90s pattern, outboard gear, that doesn't show us the before. So, but this does look more vibey, if I had to say it. So that's interesting. You could just literally just kind of forecast different environments. That's pretty useful actually. And just also for, you know, again, marketing. So this one, I don't have this many things that we can create variations for. So let's see if we can go to like a competitor site, grab a product and reformat it for ourselves. So for example, I know a lot of guys who try to copy, what do you call it? It's like production suites or whatever. So let me go to this page here. We're going to copy all this, copy this. I'm not a fan of this aesthetic necessarily, but I can see where some people would be. And what we're going to do, so far, we're not losing quality as we continue the chat. So this way you can keep all your image generations into one chat instead of like 7 different chats. So I'll say, change the product art work on the front, and my product suite is called, I don't know, boom and bass. Okay, so I'm just gonna let it have free range here to see what happens if we give it in like multiple products. Will it understand how to create variations between the products with also keeping the same theme of the products? And also, will it change out the artwork and the colors and everything? So this is a multi-layered request, and I was very vague. And it says here, okay, whatever. All right, so as that goes, so we're testing out this like multi-variant approach. And this person's prompt looks pretty long, but we don't need that much detail in the prompt. All right, so it's doing its thing. And then lastly, we're going to test out the logo generator. So we could take a classic logo, for example, how Beatmaker, the producer grind Beatmaker hoodie, they basically took that from, I think it's Backwood. So these Beatmaker hoodies, they don't sell these anymore. Okay, so we can open this up, for example. And then they took the logo from Backwoods. So this is the Backwoods logo. So they redid it for Beatmaker. So it's not an original logo, it is the Backwoods logo. So we're gonna do the same thing, but switch this out for something else, I don't know. All right, or even take the Beatmaker hoodie and see if it will change the logo there. All right, so here's the original where it says a legacy across everything. And it goes blue, green, red, yellow, orange, pink, etc. Basically rainbow colors. Okay, so now I redid the product art. So this is pretty decent. The only thing I could tell it's from ChatGPT is it does this like, I don't know how to explain it, but this kind of splattery, like almost like you're painting left to right to left to right. It does this like splattery look. But I bet if we were to run this through an upscaler, it might look better. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. So it does look kind of ChatGPT-ish, not gonna lie, but it does look presentable to where it looks like a product. So again, here's the before. Let's go to the before. Okay, the only difference is the before has a little bit more of a texture layer on the front here, which is making it look a little more light. And then this one does not have that same texture over. Now let me see if I ask it to add more texture on the front. So add more texture layer. I'll say, to be specific, plastic on each product. And let's see if it knows what I'm even talking about. So in the meantime, let's take this picture. We're going to take it to an upscaler. I'm going to move over to what's called file.ai. And we're going to burn some credits here using what's called the Topaz upscaler. So I'm going to upload the image from ChatGPT into Topaz to upscale it. All right, so for our further request where we asked it to put more plastic texture on it, it actually did that. Now it made the ChatGPT look a little more ChatGPT-esque. So it didn't really add more realism. It just kind of emphasized some of their textures that they use, but it's not bad. So let's download this, and then we're going to run it through the upscaler to see if we get a more high-res result. So here's a website called fall.ai. You guys can run and try different. All right, so here's the original here. You know, pretty decent, but you can add more detail to it. Here is the second run where we said to add texture, and then here's the upscaled version. So the upscaled version looks much more detailed, much more like a real product, whereas this one just, I don't know what it is about it. It just has that ChatGPT splattery like effect. I don't know what else to call it. Okay. So that makes a huge difference to upscale your image. Okay. So here's before. I'm out of breath because I just ran back up the steps. Here's after. Now the text isn't the greatest. If you zoom in, the parental advisory just looks like garble. I mean, there's little tells here and there, but I mean, are people going to be zooming in to your 4K image? Probably not. Okay. To be honest with you guys. Now the original did kind of look like parental advisory, but as we process it more and more and more, that's when the AI tends to make more garble, especially when you're running through upscalers who aren't trained on the same material. Their job is to just kind of guess. They're not always as good as the image generator, but they do a good job at adding details, but they might mess up the text, for example. So that's a trade-off of upscaling. But if I had to judge this as an overall product, this is actually really, really good. I'm actually kind of shocked at how good the text is across all these different things, except for the parental advisory sticker, which again is arbitrary to the main picture. It's just like, we just need to know what the thing is, what it's called, and then what it is. So in this case, it says boom and bass, accents, textures, and phrases. It even kept the logos of the dolls here. So that's pretty dope. So I mean, this, you know, looks pretty quality of a product art in my opinion. So if you guys are trying to create product art, all you would do is just go back and tell it to remove certain things or do whatever you guys want. But it's like, who needs Photoshop nowadays? I really finding it hard to even have a purpose for Photoshop. The last thing we're going to test here is logo transformation. So we're going to take the backwood logo and see if we can make it say like BusyWorks Beats or something like that. Okay. And then we're going to see if we can put the BusyWorks Beats logo on this hoodie to look realistic. So we're going to do 2 steps here. One, we're going to say, make this logo say BusyWorks Beats. So I was using ChatGPT only in one function, and I wasn't giving you guys the full scope because I was kind of, what's the word, deterred to continue. When I typed in the word Drake, it wouldn't do pictures of Drake. So I was like, it just said copyright sensitivity. And it just reminded me of how Sora 2 was so copyright restricted. It was almost like, what's the point of using Sora? It was like every word you use said copyright issue, copyright issue. I was like, what is the point of using this platform? That's why Sora 2, in my opinion, did not have that much success. It's because the copyright restrictions were just insane. So here, when I typed in the word Drake initially, now this kind of did it pretty decently. I won't say it's the greatest, but it's not the worst, but it is pretty good. Like, you guys got to understand, I used to pay people $90, $200, $300 to make logos on Fiverr. You guys are getting this for pennies on pennies on pennies. Just understand that entrepreneurship is going to blow through the roof in terms of what people can create. If you ever had a dream to become a merch designer, this is your time to shine. So let's copy this hoodie. We're going to paste it in and we're going to say, add this. I'll say, add the BusyWorks Beats logo you just made to this hoodie. And what we'll do, just in case it doesn't know what it means or what I mean, I'll copy and paste the image it created as well. So we showed real life use cases on how to use this stuff: logo generation, product art, how to upscale the product art to look, passable. Here was cool, but it just had that that look to it, that ChatGPT look. It looks like a YouTube thumbnail where people don't, it usually when you see YouTube and it has that like orange, hold on, I clicked the wrong thing, y'all. When you see people with thumbnails with this like orange splattery thing, that's how you know it's ChatGPT. It was known for that like splattery orange look. And then when you upscale it a couple times, it looks very passable as a real product. Again, we went from here, which it looks good, except for, again, it's just a tell for ChatGPT. And then as we added those details, it made it less like AI looking. Okay. But there is a trade-off. Again, when you upscale stuff, it does usually mess with the text, especially this like smaller text. It didn't translate that properly. Okay, so that is a real trade-off. All right, so let's see if it did it. So it did it. It replaced the it replaced the Beatmaker logo with the BusyWorks Beats logo. Now this logo, I could go back and forth to tell it to not include spaces to try to preserve some of that horizontal width. But overall, you can quickly see what your logo would look like on a hoodie without any other platform, without using Canva, without using all the, all these other platforms. It's right inside of your chat, just like that. You can ideate a hoodie, and some people can even figure out how to print this thing. You could even ask it, how would I turn this hoodie into a real thing? Include suppliers, estimated costs, and local screen printers. And then I'll say, I live in Exton, PA, 19341. See what it pulls up. So if it gives us a bullet point list of like suppliers and websites and stuff, that's going to be insane. I've never tried that before, but I'm curious how we can take this idea and make it a real thing. So far it did everything that we asked it to do. So it's not that I was misusing it. I was just turned off by the way it didn't master that specific thing that I was trying to do. So I didn't use it for the rest of the stuff. All right, so it even gave us a map of the Brandywine area. So that's pretty dope. Is this a real map? Oh, that's dope. You can actually click in here and like do stuff. That's dope. Okay. Then it says, yes, you can turn this into an idea. Okay. So I'm looking for it says choose the hoodie blank. So it gives you the exact thing. Champion Power Blend Pullover Hoodie. Let's see if this is a real thing or not. If it is, I'm definitely going to be looking into this. Power Blend Hoodie C logo. I guess this is the one. Looks like it. Let's save this. This might be actually the key. Now this looks different because it has a champion logo. I don't remember that ever being there before. So it's not the same fit. But regardless, it's close to. Now it's a little skinny. Like, I don't like my hoodies that tight. I just feel like it needs to be a little baggy. But this is a good start. So you would say, okay, it's 37 for the hoodie. Can you buy and then the next question is, can you buy these wholesale? And then you go down that rabbit hole. So that one looks like the retail price. Okay, so they give different options. It says estimated blank cost 12 to 18 bucks. On the high end, 40 per hoodie. So you guys can kind of literally, we just built the business in two chat entries. We ideated a picture and we said, what are the steps to make this real? And it gave us the steps. I'm not going to sit here and read all that, but it says potential revenue 3,200 if we sold the hoodies at 65 bucks. And the profit would be 1,600. So it's pretty dope. And it tells you, it even gives you the ratio of what sizes to order. That's pretty insane. So guys, look, entrepreneurship is going to go through the roof, in my opinion. I just showed you guys the real use cases for these images and how to generate and apply them. All right, y'all, go make some money. Peace out.